So I made a variation of this build a very long time ago. Back when Striker was first released, I used it in the Dark Zone, Conflict, and in regular PvE missions. The build did not disappoint. So I thought to myself, why not resurrect this concept, being that Striker is at the forefront of one of the best methods to conquering the Paradise Lost Incursion. First off, the weapon that I'm using just makes sense to have with a gear set like Striker's battle gear, and you're about to see exactly why right now. The weapon is called Merciless, and I call this build the Merciless Striker. There are so many reasons to use this. First of all, let me just get this out the way. I'm using a Ninja Bike backpack, and that's for a specific reason. If you noticed, I have the infamous Fox's Contractor's combo, and every single time these pieces of gear are used, the only reasons are for the multiplicative damage bonuses they offer, and those you can't get anywhere else. But in this build, I'm not only using them for the damage bonuses they offer, because if you didn't know already, the Merciless is extremely unstable to the point where it's unusable without adding some type of weapon handling to it. Once you do that, then it works like a charm. So fortunately, you're in luck, because the 2-piece Petrov from Contractor's Gloves grants 10% weapon handling. Not only that, but the 2-piece Overlord armaments from Fox's Prayers grants 20% accuracy, both attributes that help the Merciless immensely. And finally, I'm using Sharpshooter Specialization, with Breathe Free offering another 15% weapon handling and faster target acquisition. Now, by all means, you can use the Striker's backpack instead, but I really love the concept and idea of utilizing all of what this particular setup offers to me. Plus, Ninja Bike gives you an armor core for a little bit more survivability, but does not sacrifice the weapon core. Now, we all know that the Ouroboros has the most burst DPS in the game at the moment. And check this out, because only after partnering with DivGaming.com did I realize how awesome the resources that are offered. Basically an epicenter for everything you need, from builds to guides. Just join my Discord where you can access it all. There's also a link to the DivGaming.com website included. But I actually put the Striker's Ouroboros into the build making tool to see the exact TTK required to kill an elite NPC. Yes, it does that, which is very cool. And the results calculated the kill being less than a second, which is insanely fast. So I decided then to add in my build using the Merciless. The time to kill was around 1.7 seconds or something like that. Now, if you weren't aware of the way the Merciless works, it has a binary trigger that fires when pulled and released. This makes the weapon have an extremely high fire rate, and based on that gave the time to kill results I spoke of before. But the Merciless's exotic talent is special, and this actually might compel some of you to try this method. So listen to this. When landing shots, you gain stacks on the enemy, I believe 6. Once those stacks are reached, it causes a massive AoE explosion. Now, this is not included with the time to kill calculations in the build tool, which means that if this explosion happens while you're ADSing the NPC using the Merciless, there's a potential to instantly delete them with this explosion. Here are some examples of how it looks in game. Now that is insane, but I gotta be real. In some rare cases, the explosion does not deal damage, and I think it's honestly because of how fast the Merciless fires, and because of that, the explosion glitches out every now and then. Oh yeah, and there's also something else I've discovered about the Merciless, and this will be my final point before ending the video. But first, we have to go down memory lane a little bit. Remember when the Merciless's explosions used to deal explosive damage? It was extremely powerful, broken even, especially against chungas and robotic dogs in the first raid, which is why they changed that explosion to weapon damage, just like how the Ravenous is now. But while in the gun range, I think that I discovered something crazy. Just look at the descriptions of both the Ravenous and the Merciless. As you can see, when reading the Ravenous's exotic talent, it specifies the explosions being weapon damage based. But looking at the binary trigger exotic talent from Merciless, it doesn't specify that at all. It simply says explosive damage or amplified damage, something other than weapon damage. This got me curious, so I kept on trying to figure this out. When I went to the gun range, it revealed even more. As I began shooting the target, I consistently noticed the numbers being yellow whenever the explosion would proc. Now, let me ask you a question because I want to be sure this is correct. Don't the yellow numbers represent explosive damage or nah? I'm pretty sure they do. Just like orange represents crit, blue is for armor, and red is for headshot damage, right? If this is the case, that means the devs once again silently changed something. This doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's usually something pretty significant, which I believe this is. Let me know what you think of all this, including what I talked about before. I appreciate you watching to the end, and if this was insightful in any way, then drop a like on the video and subscribe to my channel if you're new here. This is definitely not the end of my investigation on the Merciless and this silent change the devs made, because I'm positive the description was weapon damage before now. I made an explosive DPS build a couple weeks ago called Outlaw that would be perfect for this weapon. So stay tuned for my next video when I go into more detail about it all. I'll catch you in the next one, fam. Be right out.